You're listening to Mystic Lounge with Alan B. Smith. Rebroadcast on the Onyx Network. Thursdays at 11 p.m. Pacific. Fridays at 2 a.m. Eastern.
However you are and whenever you are, welcome all to Mystic Lounge. I'm Alan B. Smith. Thank you so much for joining us on this original voyage of Mystic Lounge. Not paranormal now, but yet kind of the same thing. So for all of you who don't know, the reason that I renamed Paranormal Now Mystic Lounge is because there are a number of topics that are a little bit out of the scope of the paranormal and supernatural that I wanted to bring onto the program. And I didn't want people who were coming across the podcast or the YouTube channel to just assume that everything is paranormal and miss out on some of these other topics. It's also a personal sort of evolution for myself. I will always be covering paranormal topics and ufology on this channel, but I personally want to spend a little bit more time in spirituality, metaphysics, and personal growth. For me, it has been quite a journey. I've shared a little bit here and there over the years. That I have been someone who has dealt with addiction, and I've just come to the point now where I'm much more comfortable sharing that, and that weight of shame and guilt, which still creeps up on occasion, because you hurt people when you're going through those things, and you hurt yourself. But I got to the point now where it's been years, and I really feel good about where I am. Um, I have a long way to go in other aspects, and so I wanted to bring some of those topics onto the program. So keep an eye out for that. Now, sadly, I have to say I'm just utterly shocked. So a year ago, Ruben Fasthorse was scheduled to be on the show. He legitimately had fallen and hurt himself, and he ended up in a hospital. And I know this for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt. It was a scary moment in time for him. And he and I finally got around to having him back on the show. However, I have to be honest with you. I don't know where he is. We had spoke on the phone 2 days ago, messaged yesterday. I have no idea where Ruben is. I hate to call it a no-show, but I guess that's what it is. So hopefully I'll hear from him soon. Otherwise, I'm just flying here tonight, improvising. I don't have a guest. So I will say this. I'm going to throw this out there and see what y'all think. Mark, if you're still in the chat, if you want to jump on and let's just have a conversation about the things that really excite us. And to continue on with what I was saying, I think that there is this connection between our pursuit of the paranormal and supernatural versus just everyday self-help pursuits towards the same end, being just trying to understand our place in the universe, trying to understand oneself, and trying to be a better person. And I thoroughly believe, with all my heart, that there is a very spiritual component to our search for the paranormal. When somebody's going out there and they are investigating a haunted house, that they're entering the abyss, as it were, symbologically speaking. This idea of like a little tiny mini hero's journey where you're going into the abyss, entering the darkness willingly, and coming out hopefully having faced an aspect of yourself, and the idea that death is a reflection of our own mortality, and having to find ways to be okay with that. And that's just one aspect. The other aspect is our general place in the universe. So even for those who are investigating UFOs, ufology, and so forth, they I think that we all want to know who we are, and by projecting onto alleged extraterrestrials, we actually learn a little bit about ourselves. It's kind of like putting yourself in a objective state of mind rather than being subjective to yourself and beating yourself up. So by um, saying, okay, these extraterrestrials exist out there, what might they be like? How might they behave? How does their visiting us affect us sociologically and personally? So there's a very deep trench of personal exploration in that. And of course, there's always the facing horrors of life, um, facing our fears, no different than Halloween, and celebrating the macabre. Those of us who are interested in the paranormal and whatnot, we celebrate it all year round. And I think that for many of us, it's really healthy. Um, I've come across a lot of people in this field, and not to say, and I certainly don't know the statistics, but I've come across a lot of people in this field that have gone into their own long, dark night, the journey of having to face their own demons and come out of it. And the paranormal for me has always been a kind of a buoy. Yeah, Mark, that would be great if you want to join in. That'd be fantastic. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I put the link up there, the StreamYard link right up there in the chat. I'll just drop it in there again now. And thanks, man. Yeah, that'd be great if you can pop in. So if anyone who's joining right now, Ruben Fast Force is MIA. I don't know where he is. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my life, my interest in the paranormal, and my own personal journey. And hopefully Mark Eddy will be joining us in just a moment, who is a prolific voice and in the paranormal and supernatural. Everything from, we've discussed Shakespeare on this channel because of Mark. Uh, there he is. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Hey, Alan. Great. How are you doing?
Thanks. I appreciate it deeply from the bottom of my heart for jumping in tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for thinking that I know something.
You do know something, and it was funny because you've reached out to me before, and we've discussed topics that are not paranormal, right? Like, would you bring this onto the program? And yes, we did a couple of times, thanks to your recommendations. But it occurred to me that someone who's looking through podcasts, they're not going to find that content if the first thing that comes up says paranormal. They're not gonna think, okay, this is a podcast where we're gonna discuss Shakespeare and who his true identity really was. So I wanted to keep in the theme of metaphysics and paranormal with the title, but keep it open just enough that it's all encompassing.
I think Mystic Lounge is a good title for what you are branching out into doing.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Well, tell us about your interest in the paranormal, because I don't think we've ever really talked about how that started for you.
I don't know if probably an interest in just different things is probably most directly tied to being 7 or 8 years old watching Kolchak when it first appeared.
Good show. Well, X-Files was modeled after Kolchak.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I may have a guest recommendation for you for that that topic. But
That's great.
yeah, that was what Kendall and I were talking about just a couple weeks ago. Just that was just one of those shows that really captured my imagination when I was,
Mhm.
just a kid. Um, it was a fascinating uh, show with the variety of, the monster of the week type
Mhm.
setup. And yeah, it covered a wide variety of things that are out there.
Yeah.
And, it does directly tie to um, the X Files. And it's a continuation of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and uh, I the only real growing up next to a graveyard, um,
that'll do the job. Yeah.
yeah, and watching culture, probably that combination of things
Yeah.
made me the person I am today. But the
That's a lot. That's a lot putting that's a very formative exclamation that Kolchak had that much of an effect on you.
yeah,
I certainly can believe it because for the many fans of the X-Files, it certainly shaped not only their worldview, but how they interpreted their own, religion, um, their own exploration into the more fringe elements of science. And not unlike Graham Hancock, writing his books in the 90s, a lot of archaeologists that are working as archaeologists today, because they were reading about these fringe topics that really excited them and enthused them, that brought them into the lane they find themselves now. Same thing with me. I mean, the X Files was a major impact on my life, and I can't not talk about these topics. Do you
mhm.
think that there's a spiritual component to the paranormal?
Yeah, you get that in the Old New Testament, and
A lot of
yeah,
paranormal. Yeah. Huh.
I don't know, you get the zombie apocalypse in is it, what's the one where all the bones come together
Oh,
and is that Ezekiel, Zechariah?
I don't know. I can't
It's almost
remember.
like a recreation of one of the scenes from the Jason and the Argonauts
Yeah, yeah.
movies.
Like the stop animation. Yeah,
Yeah,
Harry, what was his last name? The director.
yeah,
Anyway,
um, yeah,
uh, yeah, and well, and in the Bible, well, actually, no, the Talmud. I think it's the Talmud. You have the golem type creatures, which
yeah,
are manifested, basically using a sort of almost like a dark magic to bring these like walking dead alive.
yeah. Well, and what was the Witch of Endor from it's in the first or second Samuel book. Um, she oh, probably take
Well,
me.
let's look it up. We'll figure
Yeah,
it out.
look it up.
Yeah.
Well, on the air, it's
Well,
terrible.
no, it's right.
It,
Yeah, and the thing
but
that's interesting is that we're talking about the Bible, right? And so I'm trying to make the correlation because I believe it to be there
sh-
between the paranormal and one's personal life journey and growth, spiritually and otherwise. And you look at the Bible, and part of
wh-
the use of mythology and these high fantasy kind of stories was very effective, tribally, to not only just bring people together around the campfire, but also to inspire, um, the fervent desire to be a better person within this lifetime. And using magic to tell those stories for whatever reason is effective. And in a sense, the paranormal is the exploration of that magic, trying to find the real magic itself in the world around us. And I think that kind of lights a fire inside of all of us. For me, when I was like years ago, really struggling with anxiety and depression and all that jazz, Coast to Coast AM was extraordinarily important to me. I mean, I was listening to it every day. I mean, hours of it every day, on the subway rides and at night when it was live. And it was really helpful for me to constantly hear these stories that were just utterly not only fascinating, but kind of mind-blowing speculation that spoke to me in a way that said, hey, there's no way you know anything at all. There's no way if there's a God or not. There's no way if there's life after death or not. But there's a lot of tantalizing evidence out there to suggest that there are all these other really fascinating aspects to life. So it just gave me this extra kind of undercurrent of energy to kind of keep my sense of excitement for life afloat. That there might be some kind of meaning, and there might be something really special that why would we want to give up on ourselves? Who knows what special thing we may learn along the way. All right, we've got Charles joining us. Hey Charles, how are you?
Hey,
Hi there.
It's indeed
Good to see you
open lines tonight.
Okay.
Thanks for joining. Mark, did you find the passage?
Yes, I did. Okay, it's in 1 Samuel 28, and okay, it says Samuel was dead, and Saul asked the witch of Endor to conjure up Samuel. Then the woman saw Samuel, and giving a great cry, she said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." It's what she is seeing, something that Samuel doesn't see.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going over that.
So is that like a do we interpret that as a ghost or a zombie?
I see a ghost rising up from. I see a ghost rising up from the earth. What is he like? He asked. He can't see. He can't see what she sees.
That's okay. So that would be definitely a spirit manifestation. It seems to
Yeah.
me. Then
So
of course you have Jesus raising Lazarus, which is a literal
yeah,
raising. Yeah.
but you also you get some of the other guests you've had on. Is what and I know Charles has spoken with him too.
Mm-hmm.
About the pillar of fire by night that is kind of like hovering in front of Moses and the all
Leading.
the Israelites. He's leading out of Egypt, and as they wander through the desert. Okay, so what had the ability to fly other than birds, over 3,000 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So
And,
there's
and deliver food on a regular basis.
Yes.
the manna. So with Charles' example, and some of the other guests that we've all had on shows, there's just a lot of unexplained stuff just in the Bible.
Yes.
And I don't you get like some of the scrolls flying over. I think it's in Revelation, flying over the mountains. Why do you have all this stuff like descending uh
Well,
coming out of the sky, like the like Star of Bethlehem. Why does it
mhm.
lead the Magi to the manger, and it seems like it just hovers. Stars don't stop, and then during the baptism, you get like a dove flying down. You have all during the Annunciation
Mhm.
to Mary. You have an angel swooping in. So you have all kinds of stuff coming out of the sky around a number of biblical characters.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so there's like some of the earliest literature is covering the mysteries that you are talking about that you want to introduce instead of it just being all paranormal. You got all kinds of other just weird stuff going on in documented history.
Charles, how much do you think we as a species have just edited stories just to embellish them, to add magic and mystery to it? I mean, because a lot of these Bible stories, when you hear it and you think, they're talking about food, they're talking about survival, and so those things are taken seriously. So if something was literally bringing them food, manna from the sky, that's not something that you would take lightly. So there's an element where I think there's gravity to this statement because we're talking about food and humans. It's a
Well,
very basic need. It's necessary. But then did they retroactively embellish the story for the purposes of religion or spirituality?
yes, I'm sure they did.
Hmm.
Look, that there was a robust trade across that desert along the
Mhm.
Mediterranean Sea through the Sinai for 1,000 years. It wasn't a lost traces. You weren't tracklessly lost out in the middle of the desert. They knew where they were going
Yeah.
because they knew where they were from. They weren't from Egypt. They were originally from the Levant.
Mhm.
Okay. And they were going back to reclaim their homes. Really. I mean, that fits the historical story more than anything, I think. You know what I'm saying? Putting it in plainer words. So the other parts, the supernatural parts, okay?
Mhm.
The fact that it was, the entire supernatural underpinnings of the Exodus and Moses's magic and Aaron was his brother, yeah, his magic, and knock it up to the point where they entered the Holy Land and knocked down the walls of Jericho.
Mhm.
I think that was a magical story that was incorporated into their history.
Okay.
Okay.
So it was like sort of overlaid.
Yes, or underlaid to give their history greater meaning and depth.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, yeah, of course, because
a religious basket that they put their story into.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that we all want to feel special in some way.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that if you can collectively get a group of people together to feel like, yeah, there's meaning behind all of
Mhm.
this, then
Sure.
it's easier to, you know, face hardships if you
Mhm.
really believe that there's, this higher power has got your back. And that goes to like even actors today, like they'll give their, Academy Award speech and they're like, thank God for this or that. Because in their heart, they really, really believe that support system is there for them and helped kind of guide them on their path, So do you, Charles, do you think that there is a monotheistic God, or I think I already know your answer, but I'm going to let you answer. Yeah.
There is a okay. I mean, this is pretty much straight from me and taken a
Mm-hmm.
lot from my. I I started out in just a plain evangelical white bread Christian, Christian beginnings. Okay. And I just got away from it all probably in the late 70s when I was in my 20s, early 30s. I just didn't have, I didn't believe, number one, I didn't believe in it anymore, but I didn't dismiss it. Okay.
Right.
I never dismissed any of it, but I didn't have time for it. Okay. And including the stuff that happened to me that was of a spiritual nature that was beyond that. I just didn't bother with it.
Gotcha.
Then I kind of took a bad spell and had a bout with cancer, had some substance abuse. I drank far too. Coming out of the cancer, it just knocked me on my tush. And I tried to drink myself out of it, and I don't think that works for anybody.
No.
So when I finally got myself, the first step on getting myself back to myself was to give up the alcohol. And when I gave up the alcohol, some of this other stuff I said, I wonder if there was anything to that, And I think at that time, that would have been probably the early 90s. I was listening to Art Bell at night, and he brought on somebody that was talking about near-death experiences. And I'm saying, well, that's just like what happened to me. And I've listened to dozens. Listen here, of people who had very, very similar experiences. And it is not really describable in normal, mundane terms, no matter how hard we try. And I have listened to people talk about it that are far more eloquent than I am. When I left my body, I went somewhere else. And it was different from here. And I was bigger over there than I am here. And I could see clearer. And I felt such a wonderful feeling of peace and calmness. And then I got vacuumed back. I had to come back.
And that's what it felt like?
It felt like, did you ever watch the old cartoons where they'd have the character would get sucked up in the vacuum cleaner? That's exactly what it felt like coming back into my body. Just a big
Charles, was there something that preceded what you were saying about leaving your body?
I was drowning. I was 11 years old and I drowned. And I popped out of my body. I floated in the air above the lake. And I could see the people. And I could see everything that was going on. And I could see my body struggling under the water. But it didn't upset me. It didn't mean anything to me from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it distinguishable from a dream state? And if
Yes.
so, how? How is it?
It is as different as this.
Yeah.
It's okay. In my experience, when you're in a dream state, or when I'm in what I consider a good dream state, it's still kind of fuzzy around the edges. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And you have what's the focus of your dream is there, but it's like the background's blurry. In this, nothing was blurry. Everything was like super sharp. I could move my attention to a rock on the other side of the lake, and I could see every grain of sand. The colors were beautiful and brilliant. And that's not like, it's not like here. It's here in Technicolor.
Well, AJ Rasmussen, who you know,
Yes.
when she describes her experience, near-death experience, she says that she forever now wants to feel that way again. She loved that feeling, and she wants to be able to bring, and that's kind of part of her own spiritual journey and mission.
Yes.
Is she wants other people to experience that feeling of love and warmth and lightness and all that. Are those the same things that you felt? Because there are near-death experiences where people said it.
I wrote mine up as completely as I could, because I wanted to explore it more. I wanted to have it down on paper so that I wouldn't be influenced by what I heard from other people. I wrote the whole thing down, and I sent AJ a copy.
Oh, you did? of the original
of the original
writing.
My original diary entry.
How long after did you journal this?
I journaled this maybe 4 years ago.
Okay, got it.
How long after? I was 11, so I was like 60, so almost 50 years.
50 years after. Okay.
Yes. But I didn't talk to anybody about it.
Is there any connection
until the late 90s?
Do you think there's any connection between the near-death experience and drinking?
No. No.
Charles, is the clarity of your
vision
from that experience, is it's similar to the changes people have after an abduction? Is there some kind of connection there?
I think there is. I think my synthesis of this whole thing is, it's like a dodecahedron, like, what is that? 12 identical triangular sides to form like a soccer ball. Okay. Each one of these, you have the out-of-body experiences, the near-death experiences, the remote viewing, the alien abductions, each one of those form a different facet of the same experience. I really believe that. They're so interrelated, and there's something about the feel of them that it just tastes the same, I guess. I can't think of how, you can't express how to, but you get that same, say, oh yeah, that's like that, And I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, not a lot of people, but quite a few people, about their abduction experiences. And I just get that same sense.
Yeah, Alan, did when you were doing Half-Life, did some of your commentaries or commenters say anything about enhanced abilities after their experiences?
Okay.
There might have been a couple. I
mean, Geraldine was very clear about that. She definitely had some intuitive enhances. She really felt like she can kind of tap into the field, around the field, quote unquote field. So that was a very like clear experience. That it was that's why she went on her trajectory of spiritual exploration. And what I appreciate about Geraldine is that on the one hand, and Ray Hernandez was on a couple of weeks ago, and he and I like were kind of going at it a little bit in regard to our experiences, positive versus negative, right? And he's going by the stats. But someone like Geraldine is saying, like, no, it wasn't okay. That in her reporting, that it wasn't okay that she was taken. It's not okay that she supposedly has these like alien hybrid children, right? That live somewhere
or
else.
Deb Cobble.
Yeah, and so it's not, and it was scary. And yet the side effect of all of these things led her on this like spiritual endeavor, which really kind of changed the way she negotiated reality and like societal norms and her place in all of this. And her understanding, even though I may not totally agree with all of it, of like the sort of quantum metaphysics explanation of spirituality. And I think it's a beautiful thing that she was able to get there. I mean, someone like Tiffany Mack also, she has kind of spidey sense. She can like sense when things are paranormally coming, and that seems to be because of those experiences that she has. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like we turn into super people because of these experiences, but there's a little bit of a resonance that seems to occur with another part of reality that wasn't there before, and subtle, but not, but there, which is I find really fascinating. That's why, for me, all of this is a kind of spiritual, and I use that word very loosely.
How about a metaphor? I throw a metaphor at you.
Yeah, please do.
We've all got locked doors. These experiences can unlock the doors. You still have to walk through the door. But I think these experiences do unlock the door or crack the door a little bit so we can reach through. And some people just walk through, and they can do special things. They can sense things here that normal people can't sense. And I think that's absolutely a possibility. Did my experience open any of my doors? I don't know. I can't say that they've given me anything special, but once I got my shit together and started working on it, and open my mind up to look at these other experiences and things, they happen more often. Okay, you can see the synchronicities if you look for them, and you can ignore them if you choose. And you can follow the guidance of whatever is going on, or not. Your choice.
Yeah, it's really challenging dealing with all of this, and I understand when people just look at some of these reports, whether it's a UFO crash or a near-death experience, and just come up with some reason to discard it. And like, for instance, I was
yes, they take the easy road.
Yeah.
Find one fact or one thing they didn't have that type of airplane at Roswell in those days, and you can say, see, that proves it's entirely lies. I can throw the whole thing away.
Yeah, well, no, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because I was just being interviewed by Rob McConnell on the X Zone, and he had brought up Roswell, and he kind of caught me off guard on air because he and his first thing he said was Jesse Marcel. He has no respect for him because he took this crash debris home, and being a military man, he should not have done that. That it was unethical, and he said so. I can't trust him. Ergo, the whole you have to throw the whole case out.
I'd argue that one.
Oh,
right
I know,
there.
yeah.
Oh,
Because there's a couple of things. When I said to him, I was like, well, okay, so let's just say that's unethical. One, there's really no protocol for intergalactic UFO.
It wasn't
crashing.
secret. It wasn't top secret. It wasn't classified.
Right.
It was a piece of something or other. A couple of pieces, according to his son's report.
And it also wasn't on military property.
It wasn't. He knew it wasn't one of ours because he was intimately familiar with the best we had, being with the 509th Bomb Group. He knew everything about what we had.
And also, just think about it in terms like this: if you were to come across, a starship debris, of course, why not bring it home to your?
Put it in your pocket.
Yeah, well, because also, even if there's a crash retrieval protocol, if you really truly believe that this is some sort of spaceship from another civilization, why wouldn't you want to show your son and your wife? And what if it's the only chance to show them because you know that the military is going to confiscate this? I don't think that really qualifies for unethical, but we disagreed. And for him, he just, thinks that
he was supposed to be clairvoyant and go into the future and say, "Oh, well, someday this is going to be against the law, so I can't do this." It's ridiculous. That's not the way people work.
No, but it's an example where if people don't, it's easy to not have to go through the hard work of reading books, reading documentation, listening to all the eyewitness events, and taking all these factors. And the other thing is, because Rob's actually, he's an investigator, and I wish I would have brought this up on the show. If you're investigating a crime, right, you can have a witness where their information is extraordinarily valuable towards making an arrest or solving a crime, even if that witness themselves is a criminal. Even if they did something amoral or unethical or broke the law, you don't just throw the entire case out because I'm not going to listen to anything else.
He was a known liar. He lied. He lied. She owned his wife.
Right. And what person hasn't lied? Exactly. Yeah. So that's a really good example of that. But that doesn't always fall into that kind of this broader metaphysical category. For some people, that is even more impossible to believe. Near-death experience. Which I find funny because there's so many people who consider themselves religious, and then they won't believe that people had some kind of experience on the other side.
Yeah, but there's so many of the people who have near-death experiences. Okay, mine was not particularly religious. It was not. I didn't meet anybody, didn't see anybody, wasn't there very long, but I kind of feel bad about that, but whatever. I was a kid. A lot of them though, they meet lost or dead loved ones who've already passed over. I don't mean dead, but loved ones that have already passed over, and they're welcomed, and some go to the point to having like a past life review. Okay, which is also a part of the protocol, pretty much, that a lot of them tend to go to, and that kind of fits in with the religious dogma on that kind of situation. So, I think it is. It is. I think it is any time you're out of your body, it's a religious experience. It seems like to me. I mean, you've had shamans flying through the air forever, you know, and you have magicians and the whole going back through all the different pagan possible religions and Hinduism and Buddhism and anything that's in the legends. Those experiences, those kinds of experiences are religious, are qualified as religious experiences. But I'm saying there's not, and they are, but they're not special anymore. When if you could go across the United States, I'm sure you'd find 10 million people who've had near-death experiences or past life experiences or abductions. Good grief, there's got to be more than that. And these are all facets of that other side of the veil, you know. So it is all. So that's why I say it's all one part of this. It's all different parts of the same thing. And we're just now getting to the point with this kind of conversations and this kind of technology to be able to put the puzzle together.
I think what I'm trying to reconcile is I do believe that there's very much a mindscape aspect to this. Like there's a consciousness thing going on here where people are having experiences that aren't necessarily physical, but we're all having, you know, these similar experiences, similar encounters. That can't just be random. There must be something going on in another part of reality that we're.
Okay, let's look at ghosts. In the ghost hunter lore, there are physical movement, what's poltergeists, okay, that throw things around and, you know, to make all kinds of trouble. So the veil is not, it's a veil, but it so they can come across and we can go across. We can go across in a conscious fashion, okay, and they can come across in a physical fashion. So it's not impermeable to either side. So like an ET abduction could have elements of both and something entirely different, you know?
Right. So I mean, these UAPs that we're, you know, beginning to catch on, you know, high tech equipment are obviously physically there because they're detectable.
Right.
So if they're physical, and then there's this mindscape experience, you think that it's possible that they're either doing both, or when a UFO shows up outside of someone's house and they say they're abducted, did they actually leave, or was it all something that they conducted on a conscious level?
I know that's
right?
That's the part that's so difficult.
Yeah.
Did they just move your consciousness over to the ship, or did they move your physical body through the ceiling and over into the ship?
Well, Charles, to follow up with what you said, what about Betty and Barney Hill's abduction experience? That seems to have been
a lot of physicality appears to be involved there.
Hey guys, we have a question here from Ward, and he says, do you believe that we are able to make ourselves think in a way that we make the ability in our mind to see the reality behind existence, that you will develop a power within yourself with the gift of thinking beyond your reach? Because I am sure I had this collective consciousness for a couple of hours. It's a good question.
I will accept that, and kudos to having done that for a couple of hours. I do think that is an aspect of it, but I don't think we're really capable of maintaining that here in meat. Okay. I think we're bigger. Our consciousness is bigger and faster and stronger and clearer over there.
Mm-hmm.
Doing all that, it's okay. You've got the little hand and the big hand. Okay, you can't. It's harder to do it. I'm not saying it can't be done, because there are moments of inspiration when, holy shit, and it just comes out. Okay,
Well,
but you can't. The small thing can't create the big thing.
Well, if you think about someone like William Henry, he talks so much about like the rainbow body and this idea that we could eventually kind of merge and become like that. We can literally kind of like Jesus, rising from the dead. It was both a physical and a spirit, manifestate. Like he literally transcended his physical body into the spirit world, and this kind of idea that we could get there eventually, maybe. But then there's this other way of thinking which seems to be more evident, and that is our minds can't handle that for too long, and that's why people come back from those experiences after. Yeah.
But Alan, what about some of the Egyptian and Sumerian artwork that just say like that light bulb panel? Okay, Charles knows what I'm talking about. What if that piece of artwork represents a lot of what you and Alan have been discussing, like some kind of like soul type idea? Let's just say maybe that's a possibility. Maybe the ancients were onto that topic 4,000 or 5,000 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they were.
And we're just rediscovering it now. But I just wonder how much of all the stuff we're talking about on all these paranormal late night talk shows are I think it's actually something really new, and the ancient people really didn't talk about it that much, because it was like just so commonplace in their culture.
I don't think it was commonplace anywhere, but I think it happened everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
Because our ability to do that, to reach across, or even if it's just if it's an artificial state of mind that we're creating, and we go somewhere else when we're in extreme distress or pain or whatever. Okay. If that ability was there in our DNA, it's been there for a long, long time. Okay. And we can do that. Okay. If that's a part of it, then what we're talking about at Dendera, or in the Sumerian literature, or in Hindu stuff, a lot of the Hindu stuff, is their explanation of the experience that they had, and they're explaining it in things that were commonplace in their world.
Yeah.
We're explaining it like, oh, it was like being an NPC, a non-player character in a video game, or maybe going from 6 to 8-bit to real life.
Well, I mean, not to end on a downer note, but maybe it is kind of like the Matrix in a way, where if you like once you wake up, like you're kind of doomed, and so it's either like you have to stay or you have to go. It's like you have to either accept that reality and go live there, or you have to find a way to shut your mind down, and so you can just keep going about your life. But in a sense, I would kind of almost imagine it's almost like the reverse than in the movie, whereas it's like this is the real world in a sense, and then there's the Matrix outside of this real world, which is just another type of real world. But so dying here is like in the Matrix. When you die in the real world, you die in that world. I think that that's there's symbology there that kind of transcends our just idea of what death is in the first place. So if you experience a death and rebirth of your mind here, do you kind of just transfer your consciousness into another world, and is that then your death?
No.
So there's Tibetan monks.
I think
legends of
when
Tibetan
this body is finished, I think this portion of the soul that's in me, goes back on the other side with the rest of me that's stuck over there, couldn't fit in here, and the experience continues.
Well, there are stories of Tibetan monks and other monks that they meditated to the point where their mind got there, and their mind died. And it moved on to this other reality, and their physical body seemed to be in a sort of stasis.
Yes,
but not necessarily dead, and yet dead at the same time.
Yes. Okay.
Well, that's what your show's about. Mystic Lounge is about explaining being alive and dead at the same time.
That's a great way to think of it. I like that, Mark. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, we're going to have to wrap it up.
Hey,
thank you
so much for having us.
Yeah. I loved it. I love having you guys jump in. I really appreciate it. So Mark, do you want to share anything about podcasts? Charles, do you want to share anything?
Go ahead. What?
Yeah, let me get out my calendar.
You can catch me on YouTube at Survivor Circle, 6:30 on Tuesday, every Tuesday. Me and Maria have our little conversations and talking about pretty much everything. And we try to have a good time.
That's awesome. Yeah. I appreciate that.
And on Tuesday, November 15th, I think from noon to 1 on barbaradelong.com, I have John Hughes, who will be discussing his new book on the Templars and what they learned from interacting with people from the Holy Land and what they brought back to Europe. It's I don't know if I have the book, stack of all this stuff over here. I'd probably have a avalanche.
That's all right. Well, we're gonna sign off now anyway, though. But thanks, Mark. It's like, I mean, we can hang a little bit longer, but I got to get this over to the UNX network. So, thank you so much for joining, guys. I really, really appreciate it, and thank you all for joining us tonight. Again, I'm sorry I don't know what happened to Ruben. This is the second time, unfortunately. I know last time he had a serious fall. He had hurt himself very seriously. I know that without a shadow of a doubt, and that was unfortunate, but he healed. He was in a really good place. We talked just a couple of days ago and messaged recently. So I'm not sure what happened. So I'll keep you updated if I hear anything from Ruben. So thank you all for also joining us for the first stream of the newly renamed Mystic Lounge. Until next time, everyone, peace and love, and live in the mystery.